So with that, I'm gonna change gears and I'm gonna hop over and I'm just gonna give you a flyover of kind of the flow and some best practices that we use at Prism that you can utilize on in your environment. So what I would usually do for a customer is I'd start off logged in as a client manager. You may want to already have this logged in, or you may want to log in right when you start the demo because that shows your logo, in nice bold letters. Your logo won't be Prism. We've come up with this Prism PEO. This is our fictional PEO. But what I would usually do in a demo is I'd say, okay, customer, here's how I'm going to log into the system. This is going to be you. So we're going to show you everything that you can do with our service offering. And the first thing we're going to show you is our hiring component. So this is the first part of what we're talking about from the hire to retire. If you're familiar with the hiring, this will be a little repetitive, but this is where you could allow your client to post their own jobs, or you could administer it on behalf of your client. So of course you're going to want to understand what your service offering is. You only offer theirs. In most cases, I say, hey client, you can post your own jobs. Here's how you do it. So I go into here, I edit an existing job because it's too much to type in and create a new job posting. So I said you can type in or paste in these job titles. You can show them the job description wizard if you like. I like to build out custom fields, and if you want, you can add different customers in here so they can see they can administer multiple of their client accounts. And then you can come down and you can customize the form. And customizing the form is determining the type of questions that your client can use to pre-screen their candidates. So have a few of these. And just come in and say, hey, here's a good example. This is one that says, hey, do you have an XYZ certification? And you say, well, hey, we're going to automatically archive the employee if they say no. We're going to tag them if they say yes. So this shows the client that they can have complete control of this. Now, if you've already identified this client as not needing this, of course, you don't go there. If you got another one that's not very high tech, you're not going to stress everything that they can do. You can say, we can help you with this, obviously. But stress the simplicity, and it really is a simple tool. You can see you can add text, essay, questions, multiple choice. You can do a very simple job posting. You can do a very complicated. We've got one of our customers, staff's teachers, and they've built a full employment application with this. So show a little bit of this, come through here and show them how they can determine who the hiring managers are, save and continue, and then show them how they can share this on any of the job boards, either free or by putting in their credit card and showing them, or getting them on all the paid job boards. So not every client of yours will need this. This is really important for some of your clients who are coming from off of a provider who has something like this. A lot of clients may just have licensed something like this kind of separate, and when they think they can get everything from one place, we competitively price this particular component with all the other products in the market, and this stacks up pretty well from a pricing component, and it's pretty easy to enable. So sometimes you'll have a client on the fence, and if they can get this all from one spot, they'll really like to do that. One of the other nice things that this platform does is it enables your customers or you to be able to customize a jobs page for your customers. So it's not quite as advanced as what we do on the employee self-service for Prism, but you can pick from a series of colors and you can add the client's logo. So for your smaller clients who don't have a jobs page, they could have an instant jobs page, and I usually keep one open in the background. And again, I've established the client identity. Client, you work at Aero Technologies, and here's what I'm going to show you. This is imagine your logo, imagine your colors here. And then I just walk through, reviewing the job descriptions and so on and so forth. So for those of you who are not familiar with our hiring component, there's also a widget the client can embed this in their website. So if they don't need a jobs page like the one I'm showing here, they can embed it in their website. You can go to Prism HR, to ours, we use the same application. You can see what that looks like. But for your clients, this really is a nice offering. They can share, the candidates can share it on social media. They can get updates. When they decide that they want to apply, they don't have to register. They just enter their name, email address, phone number. They can upload their cover letter, upload their resume, and then they have to answer, or they answer any of the questions that you've made mandatory. They'll answer all of them. And you can build in employment history and things like that. So it's real easy for the candidate to employ, but of course, easy use is what you want to stress. That's what everybody wants. They want something easy and simple because a lot of the people you're talking to aren't technology people. Of course, you're going to have those, some of those, but and this is powerful enough to do that, so you can go into a little more depth. Then you can hop in and say, okay, back at the manager portal, you can go in and review your candidates, and you've probably seen it, but just kind of stress that, hey, you can get at the source document when you review your candidates. We parse that out. You can search for it. You can review the questions that the employee asked. You can review the types of tags that were posted, or you could post in a custom tag in here. You could rate the applicant, set their status, send communications to the client, maybe thanks but no thanks. So it's really going to do everything that most companies are going to need. It's not a requisitioning tool. It's not going to replace a client that has Taleo or something like that. But most clients, this is right in the sweet spot of what they need to do. They can have multiple hiring managers in here, and they can exchange notes and pass applicants across hiring managers. They can put in notes and keep a chronology. I got something going on with WOW in here. But you can see the notes that are on there. If you send communications, they'll be in here. If the employee or candidate responds, they can do that. So I usually give a flyover of this for customers. It's something interesting for them. But what ties it to our story? Remember, we're always getting back to our story. We're always engaging the client. Our story is a client. So when it's time, at some point you're going to hire somebody, right? So in this process, we could order a background check through here. And or we can click on this hired button, and we can bring the person from an applicant status into a new hire status. And client, this is how you could do it. You could choose to enter all that information, or all the information, including the tax filing status, the banking information, all that stuff. Or client, what's better is to offer an electronic onboarding option. So if you don't have the electronic onboarding option, of course, you're not going to show it. But the story you tell is you hit that button, the manager enters a couple pieces of information, the employee gets an email, and then when the employee logs in and validates their username and password, they're going to get a screen that looks like this. So I have a branded onboarding offering, branded for, you guessed it, Aero Technologies, with our logo and some generic verbiage. And you can go in as little or as much detail as you would like with the client if you're replacing another system. And this is another thing. We have a timeout on this, so you want to keep clicking on it so you don't have to do what I'm doing because people don't normally see that. So a trick when you're doing an online demo is you can pause your screen and go and do that. I should have done that now, but I didn't. But you can just walk through and show the client how they can progress through this. Videos, introductory videos. Of course, your ASO clients, you'll want to spend this a little bit differently than your PEO clients, and you'll want to limit, maybe the customizations that you want to do for the customer. But then you come in and say, okay, customer, we've hired Jack Joseph, so we've made these fields required. If you're setting this up in your demo environment, try and make as few fields required as possible, because you want to spend a lot of your demo time typing. It's distracting for everybody. It's hard to type and put together a cohesive thought on the system. But so you'll see in my demo, I haven't made a lot required, and I tell the client that. So, but here's where we get down to the address. And depending on who your customer is, this could be a really big deal for them. Your customers that are in multiple tax jurisdictions in multiple states have wandering employees. The way that Prism does the geocoding makes a big difference for the customer. So what I usually do here, and even if it's not a complex customer, I say, customer, what's your zip code? And I've already pre-set up this employee. So I set up this employee. I found out where this customer is or where they have employees, and I hired that employee into that state, or better yet, a neighboring state. Because the way Prism manages multiple tax jurisdictions is significant for customers, for PEOs and customers who have employees all over the place. So either ask the customer a zip code, and most customers are willing to give you a zip code. So use their zip code, put it in. You can be pretty confident it's going to pull the right information in here and proceed forward as you show them this. So here's where we get the emergency contact and and this type of information. So you can choose to skip over some of these things. You can show fields that expand. Depending on what they're coming off of, this could be really impressive, or it could look pretty similar to what they're doing. So find out, where you are in that realm. If it's very similar to what they are, or you think the other one might be superior in some sense, breeze through this and tell them to do it. As you go through, you can load up an employee handbook like I've done here, and I took just a generic handbook and I slapped the company's name on it. So you don't really need to go into the details of it, but you can show one and show them the electronic acknowledgments and things of that nature. So we'll go through this whole type offering with the customer, and we'll tell them, hey, we give the employee a certain number of days left to complete their onboarding. We usually set that at 3, and you can explain why for I-9, and then as you keep going through the system. So you'll just walk through the entire enrollment. You can add a bank account. Believe it or not, many customers actually know routing numbers. I don't know how. I have trouble remembering the one I use about 4 times a day. But I would ask the client for the routing number. I probably wouldn't ask them for the bank account number, although you could. And go through this and show them that the system will pull this information, and you can explain the details of a direct deposit and so on and so forth. Something also that's a differentiator in our product that a lot of customers like is a lot of customers on AP and other payroll providers are used to employees, when they sign up for direct deposit, getting their first check as a live check. And the thing we do, of course, in Prism is you can actually send the pre-note. The pre-note will actually go the next time you run payroll for anybody and send an ACH file. So a lot of times I tell a customer, you're not going to have to pre-note, and you're not going to have to give an employee a live first check, because you can pre-note it. In a lot of cases, the same day that the employee is doing this, you can get this done before the employee gets paid. So that can save you a lot of headache, and it saves the client a lot of headache as well. You can choose to go through the tax forms, or you can skip over it. In this case, you'll see I set up somebody who works in Illinois and lives in Indiana. So that shows the multiple taxes. That's really important for some of your customers, because a lot of them are struggling with that. They're fighting with their current provider to pay penalties because they didn't withhold the taxes right. So if you can identify that pain early on, you set up the client like that, stress that type of thing, go through these forms, talk through it, and depending on the client's level of engagement as you're asking them and walking them through here, you can go through every single tax form if you would like. I would recommend at least hitting 1 so they can show how the system renders the form as they go forward before they move on through the process. And the nice thing about the onboarding is you can skip around in a demo. So you may realize that the employee can't finish this unless they hit everything, but on a demo you can skip around, so you don't have to spend a lot of time doing repetitive things. So that's why I skip around, and be sure you tell the client that you're skipping around, that an employee can't finish it without skipping around, so they don't think that there's a hole in our process. Discuss the I-9 process. Think about who does the I-9s, who signs the I-9s in your particular case. Many of our PEOs let their customers sign the I-9 process. Tell them this is all an integrated system. There's nothing you need to do to import the employee into the system at the end of the onboarding. Tell all that story. Because some customers are getting this from a lot of different pieces. Ours looks a little different right now, but it is completely integrated. So utilize that to your advantage through this. I usually stream the benefit enrollment right with the employee onboarding, and you can discuss how well your company and our system maintains all the benefit rules and things like that. So we'll make sure that employees know when they're eligible. I generally would note some customers want the employee to fill out their benefits paperwork when they first get hired. Other customers don't want the employee to fill out their benefit paperwork until they become eligible. That's a big deal for some customers. So explain, hey, I've done it this way for this customer, but we don't have to do this. We can decouple the benefits and so on and so forth. Of course, you got to have benefits to show this at all. But what I would do is I would continue on through here, discuss, and maybe hit a couple of these plans that are significant within the system. talk about the benefit offering. As I said, set up some either dummy plans. If you do a lot of client-sponsored plans, set up some dummy plans. I would probably mix, depending on how you do it, an HMO plan, a PPO plan, so you can get a feel for the client, maybe a high deductible plan. Pull in your summary plan documents or some dummy summary plan documents, so when you click on this link, you've got something to show. Don't dwell on it at this point. Hopefully, through the sales process, this isn't the first part of your sale. You've gone through some of the other things before you've gotten here, so this just kind of reinforces what you've told people. If you got a client with a health plan that's family rated, you can say that, hey, we don't see this this part of the coverage because this depends on the age of each dependent. So stress to them how powerful our benefit offering is. The employees will only see plans that they're enrolled in. You know, multi-state clients, that's important to them. Because in a lot of systems, you know, if you're in a big company, you see everybody's benefit offering. It's kind of hard to whittle out and figure out which one's yours. And explain a little bit about our benefit rules and how well we do it. Hopefully you do it well according to how the system's set up, because it's very powerful. And then come down to the bottom and say, yes, we're going to decline coverage. If this employee wants to decline, show them that we're going to get them the reason to decline coverage, and you can tell them that we can prompt the user to have to upload proof through that. Because the Affordable Care Act, obviously for many customers, is a real hot button, and a lot of customers are engaging other companies and paying a lot of money to them to do their ACA. And the funny thing about that is you got to do all this setup if you're outsourcing the ACA, and you're paying extra for it. And what does it really get you when in the PRISM system that's all included? So sell that and position that with your customer if the ACA is something that's important to you and you are administering it. If your clients are under 50 employees, that's not really important to them. But if they're on the verge, that could be. So pick an employee, enroll them in coverage, pick one of the plans, enroll them in coverage, put them in a coverage option, click through here and put in the dependent name, and don't use yours. This is always the hard part, is figuring out a new name that I haven't used before. So you just plug this in, plug in the relationship, and buzz through this pretty quickly. If you want, you can you'll put in this information and you'll show them all the important things that we do, that we validate, so that you can't put that will require a gender, and that will put all this information into the system, and walk them through all the benefit plans. Show them that you can't put your spouse on child coverage before you continue on. And I would hit the high points. I wouldn't hit every plan. I'd probably show the client an employer paid plan, maybe an STD, show them life insurance. Those are the big ones. And so this explains to the client, wow, this really does do everything. So it really leaves a lasting impact on the client, and we haven't even really gotten to the core PRISM yet. But in the interest of time, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hop over to the core PRISM. So I would go from here into showing, okay, client, so we talked about what the employee can do. Let me show you what you can do, and let me explain to you that everything we're doing is in real time. If you've got clients with different cost centers, say you can limit what they can see, so the employee can come in here and look at those different things, drill into an employee, show them all the neat things they can do. A lot of this stuff the client's not going to necessarily be impressed with, that you got a name, personal information, so on and so forth. You know, talk to the client. If they do union reporting, show them we do unions. If they do job costing or cost allocation, show that. I usually skip over everything else and say, hey, client, you can set up your own skills and education and renewal dates on the system. You can track company property on the system. These are great things that customers are usually doing on a spreadsheet or somewhere else. They're not relying on their HRIS to do that. You know, if they're on ADP or Paychex or something, they're just doing payroll. You can also say that clients can upload their own documents onto the system. Clients like that. Tell them they can have complete control. Tell them that you can limit the different type of access. If you have a manager at your organization you don't feel real good about, you can make it read. We can make it read only for them. Or if you have a clerk, we can make we can hide the pay tab. So go through an overview of that and kind of feel them out and see what's important to them. Show them they're gonna see pictures of their reps. Add some favorites to your dashboard so that you can show them some of the really neat things, like total compensation statements, always one that people like to see. build this up on the system, find one employee, and one employee, this is the one I'm logged in as, and that's the employee you're going to show all the time. So you're always going to have data there. They're going to be enrolled in benefits. They're going to be enrolled in a retirement plan. They're going to be enrolled in PTO. So show some of this. Show off the system, show off the capabilities, but also talk about the type of things that our system does automatically that keeps the system from making errors. Now you want to be careful with that. You don't want to make your client assume that your company's a bunch of dummies that don't know how to catch different things. But a lot of customers have had mistakes happen that didn't need to happen, and we have a lot of the rules in place for automation that keep those from happening. A good one would be, almost everybody's had an employee that got set up in some sort of payroll system as $1,000 an hour instead of $1,000 a week, and you can stress that we catch that as part of the process. So I would go through this, talk about the search. Depending on what they're doing, you can pull up and say, I can search for an employee this way by a social security number, or by the name or the social security number, and you could show them how they could switch amongst their clients. Here's where I've got my drywall companies, my job costing, Del Frisco's is my tip client. So when I need to, I can switch over there and demo those as well. Sometimes it's nice to show the help buttons. The video help is really nice to show, but it doesn't play over GoToMeeting, so they can't hear anything it says, so you can kind of mention it, but it's kind of a waste to show that. Here's where I've got good information for these employees, so if you don't have the phone numbers and email addresses, that doesn't look very good. So you're doing all of this, and what you could do is give a tour, maybe a little broader tour of that, and then you can say, okay, well, I'm a customer, but I'm also an employee, so let me show you the employee self-service portal that you can show that you can brand for our Aero Technologies clients. This is where employees can come after the fact. So we have their onboarding and their benefit enrollment, but this is where they go to do the basic stuff. And always point out and just do a drag over here to show that this is mobile compliant, that it's responsive design. A lot of employees these days, and many more, aren't going to have computers. They're just going to have tablets. They're just going to have phones. So everybody needs to do something on a phone. Come in and drill around and grab check history. Have a W-2 out there. That's why I say put in some history in at least a prior year, so you can pull up a W-2. Poke around in here, and if your company believes in letting employees make changes to direct deposit, you can show things like this out here on the system and on the platform, and just kind of walk through the screens. 401k, myself, and personal changes and tax settings and so on and so forth. You'll be able to show very shortly the leave request functionality within Prism. That's coming in a very, very soon release where employees can request leave online and it'll route to their supervisor. That's a nice function that we have that your customers will like, and really just kind of feel them out and see what they want to do. Usually I put a message out here, so you can post a message to the client portal, and I tell the clients that they can send messages through Prism to their employees, post it to their portal, and email them as well, and then add custom events. So you can spend some time here. I'm going through it quickly because hopefully everybody's seen this, maybe from me, and hopefully you have it up and running as well. So I hop into that, and then what a lot of clients do, and it's remarkable. Some clients don't even care about payroll because they just see payroll as kind of a no-brainer. But other clients, that's the main focal point of the demos. So try and get in what you can. Don't dwell on anything. I've had demos cut short if I'm checking with the client, and they just kind of say, yeah, and you can kind of cut them short if you see the deals. They're already satisfied. Some clients just want to see that you have a portal and it looks pretty neat, and that you can do some stuff, and that's enough for them. So don't bore them. Don't oversell it. They might find something they don't like. But then, for clients who do, this is pretty nice for demo purposes. Show them how they can then tab through the timesheet entry form to enter time. Show them where they could import time if you want. You can have an import file ready so that you can import this. Different clients will have different complexities, and you'll just have to get a feel for this. But I'd have a payroll here. I'd key in at least a couple entries. I'd have a deduction, freeform deduction set up here. I'd show the client how, hey, in the middle of payroll entry, you can click onto the employee record. For clients that need to do job costing, you can go through this and show some of the type aheads that the system does. All neat stuff. I'm going through this quickly because hopefully everybody's got Prism, or we'll have it very shortly. Show them how you can do it without a mouse. If you don't know that, we can show you how to do that. That's page up to get me out of there. It's control enter to get into there, and it's enter to save the record. So, but make it simple, make it easy for your customer to do what they do. If it's job costing, dive right into that. I like to show this icon and not spend too much time on it, but show the customer that, hey, we can compare this payroll versus your historical averages, and so on and so forth. For your complex clients, you can show them how to filter the timesheet, and they can have different managers doing different parts of the timesheet entry and so on and so forth, and how they finalize it. And then you can change the filter and do all that. So you can get into some complexities here. Many clients don't need that. It really depends on your mix of clients. But I would show them, here's how reports work on our system. And you can run this report and show it how it extracts to Excel and stuff. And engage them and see what kind of questions. Tell them we can do these columns. If you've got a hospitality client, make sure you have tips out here, and so on and so forth. So, but what I would do is I would finalize this payroll, and hopefully you have another monitor, and I would just kind of discuss things with the client, and maybe pause my screen if you don't have another monitor. And I go in here, and I would initialize the payroll for the client while I'm talking to them. Now, some of you, you may know that Prism allows your clients to initialize or calculate their own payrolls, but some of you may not want your clients to do that, especially not across the board. So I usually have this open on another screen. I pause my screen. You can, while you're talking to the client, review a payroll, and I usually have the payroll set up for client to review. So you can say, client, we're going to go do our thing, and you can, of course, say it a little more technically than doing our thing, but we're going to audit all your information. We're going to make sure it's all accurate and so and so. Then we're going to send you an email when it's ready, and you can go through the payroll approval process, grab the payroll, and show the client that they can preview their invoice. Now, this is where you don't want to show the client an unbundled invoice if they're a bundled client, but I would show them, a lot of clients really love the client accounting part of our system. So have a chart of accounts set up, be able to click into this, show them that. As you go through the demos, tell them that they can get this. We'll do all this for you. Out on the system, you can run a couple sample reports for them. You can say, hey, client, if you see something wrong, you can type us a message and say something's wrong, where we can reopen it for you, as opposed to or you could type a message to make a change, and then you can have a client approve the payroll and move on. If clients need to see other reports, you can drill into this part of the system, and you can pull up some sample reports, sample checks if you'd like. Of course, you're going to show them a sample check on the employee self-service, more than likely. I didn't show that, but that's typically where I would show them that. But you could show them checks here if you want. And really make them feel comfortable with the system, show them the search. Good example, pick out a report or two. Census is a good one, so the client can say, hey, look, you can just search for census, and we're going to give you this information. And show them there's run times. Explain to them some of the reports run by date range, across calendar years, across all kinds of things. Pull up a report, one that you know. Show them you can scroll through the report, that you can click on the data behind the report, those type things. Definitely show them the output options, print, convert to PDF, and launch into Excel. Clients love launch into Excel, so always show that no matter where you get at it. You could have gotten at it on the payroll screen, or you could get at it here. So round out your offering by showing all the capabilities. If you offer and have licensed Informer to your clients, I recommend logging over into Informer and finding a pet report that you have. One that you almost likely have is a report that we deliver to you called the Expanded Census. Sometimes you can log into this before you start because there's a little bit of a delay getting into it, but show them, hey, this is the Expanded Census. We're going to give you lots of reports, and even if it's a report that you're not going to develop yourself, we can let you run your own reports. So we can be responsive to you. Now make sure you can be responsive, and you're willing to be responsive to your customers. You know, a smaller 5-person shop, you may not want to be that responsive to, whereas 1,000, you could design some things. But you know, you can get into an informal report, drag some fields around, sort some fields, show them how much power there is in the reporting tool, maybe drag workers' compensation class up here, click around in here, and so on and so forth. Show them the analytics, charting everybody loves. So show them by zip code, you know, pie chart, and kind of do that. So show them a little bit of everything. Make sure that the client in some part drives what you're going to show them. I usually start off a demo by saying, hey, here's what we're going to show you. Is that what you want to see? And you can find out pretty quickly if that's what you want to see. Ask them throughout, is this too much detail or is this enough detail? So always put it in the client's hands. Always keep it tabs with it. I mean, it's easy when you're sitting with a client, but these days a lot of things are remote. And really present the whole hire to retire process. You can show them the Affordable Care Act. I usually have a 1094, 1095 form out there as well. But you know, that's really the meat of how we put together a demo. So with that, I will turn it back over.
Thanks, Rob. I just want to remind everyone before we get to the Q&A that all of the demos are available at seeds.prismhr.com/demos, and there you can view, download the actual videos, scripts, and even the screenshots. Looks like we have a couple minutes for questions. If you have any additional questions, please enter them into the question window now, and let's dive in. So the first question is, how do clients handle making sure their demo client doesn't impact their production and overall reporting and metrics? Rob, do you mind taking a stab at that one?
Sure. So what you'll want to do is if you're going to house your demo client in your production environment, set up a different EIN for this customer, like a 999. Assign them a different EIN, so then they're not going to show up on any of your tax reports. Assign them a different bank account, so they're not going to show up in your ACH. And you can actually use a cost center, sub-cost center on your client file, so that you can then, they won't show up if you're running different reports by that. And you can limit your security access by those cost centers as well, so your payroll reps won't stumble on a dummy client out there. So that's a best practice, but that's one of the reasons you may want to put them in your demo entire account.
Great, thank you. And the next question we have is, would you recommend training for clients on a demo site or the client's actual site, even though there's no data in there yet as far as payroll goes?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's always nice to show a client their data, but in a lot of cases you're kind of scrambling to get the client set up before you run their first payroll, and you're not going to be able to show them the self-service and a check stub. So a lot of times clients are okay with you showing them and training them on a demo account. Because they understand you may have demoed before. So I'd probably advise doing it on a demo account unless you're just already set to go. But then when it's time, you can be online with them while they're doing their first payroll on a GoToMeeting or something and kind of make sure they have everything set. But I would say demo account.
Great, thanks. Are each of us supposed to create our own demonstration client? Currently we use the same one, and it does cause serious problems. I just want to be sure because it means that we can make corrections to it on the fly.
Yeah, I mean, that's really personal preference. One thing you can do is you can take a really good client, and there's a function in our system where you can copy them, and that gets most of the client setup information over. I just feel better because you may add an employee and you may leave some sort of error. It's really embarrassing. And if you haven't done a lot of demos, it can really fluster you if you have an initialization error. And some clients or prospects are real particular about errors. So you don't have to, but I would at least have a few of them, depending on how many people are going to be in here touching this stuff. Or be real careful on who you let get stuff. I mean, even at Prism, I try and keep as many people out of my demo account as I can, because you never know what they're going to leave.
Great. And then we have, when a client uploads documents, do those flow through to their documents folder for managers on the web?
If they load them through the Prism interface, where I showed that there were documents that you associate with the employee, yeah, that's available to. I got to make sure I understand the question. When you load them, the manager can see them. If you check a box, the employee can see those documents as well. So I'm not that sure. Today, the onboarding documents don't show up in the Prism interface, but we are working toward making that happen sometime late this year.
Great, thanks. And it looks like we have time for just one more question. If we didn't get to your question, we will make sure that we follow up with you directly after the webinar. So the last question is, how are you posting all these payrolls in a demo client and not messing up ACH files and year-end files?
I think I already addressed that one, but yeah, that's having a dummy ACH bank account in the system so that they don't show up and your ops people won't run those direct deposits. And quite frankly, I only post one payroll a week. I just reuse the same client. I don't post the payroll on the demo with the client because the client doesn't need to see the posted payroll. You can just pull up an old one if they need to see something. But I only post it once a week also, and I just go back and reset either delete the payroll control record, or I just leave the data in there and give control back to the client. So you can do it. You just have a dummy EIN, a dummy bank account.
Excellent. Thank you. And so with that, I'd like to wrap up today. We'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us. As you leave the webinar today, you'll see 2 brief questions asking for your feedback on today's webinar. Please take a moment to share your input so we can continue to deliver the events and resources